In the public record, the story appears fragmented, scattered across court filings, sealed motions, flight logs, and press reports that surface briefly before sinking again into obscurity. Yet when these fragments are placed side by side, a different shape begins to form. Not a single event, not a single crime, but a system that endured. A system that allowed one man to move freely for decades, while questions followed behind him, unanswered and unresolved. According to records, Jeffrey Epstein first entered elite financial circles in the late 1970s. His early career remains difficult to reconstruct with certainty. Reports suggest he worked briefly as a teacher before transitioning into finance, though documents indicating how this shift occurred remain incomplete. What is clear is that by the 1980s, Epstein had positioned himself near extraordinary wealth and influence, operating in environments where discretion was valued above transparency. Financial filings indicate that Epstein managed assets for a small group of ultra-wealthy individuals. The precise nature of his work has never been fully disclosed. Unlike traditional investment firms, there was no public list of clients, no clear portfolio breakdown, and no sustained regulatory scrutiny visible in available records. This absence of detail would later become a recurring feature of the case. As Epstein's wealth grew, so did his access. Properties acquired in New York, Florida, New Mexico, Paris, and a private island in the Caribbean became central to later investigations. According to travel records and visitor logs that emerged years later, these locations hosted a steady stream of powerful figures from politics, business, academia, and royalty. The gatherings were informal, often private, and rarely documented in detail. For years, these movements attracted little attention. Reports suggest that complaints existed as early as the 1990s, but they failed to gain traction. In law enforcement records, references to Epstein during this period appear sporadic, often vague, and ultimately inconclusive. No sustained investigation appears to have been pursued at a national level. By the early 2000s, this quiet pattern began to change. According to police reports from Palm Beach, Florida, allegations emerged involving underage girls. Witness statements described a routine, a system of recruitment, and a network of intermediaries. These reports were detailed, consistent, and supported by sworn testimony. Yet the response was limited. Documents indicate that despite the severity of the allegations, the initial investigation stalled. Jurisdictional boundaries complicated the case. Federal agencies deferred. Local authorities faced legal pressure. According to court filings, negotiations began behind closed doors, away from public scrutiny. In 2008, the case reached a turning point. Epstein entered into a non-prosecution agreement with federal prosecutors. According to the terms, he pleaded guilty to state charges and served a short jail sentence under unusually permissive conditions. The agreement also granted immunity to potential unnamed co-conspirators. This clause would later draw intense scrutiny. Legal scholars reviewing the agreement described it as highly irregular. Records indicate that victims were not informed of the deal, a requirement under federal law. Internal communications later revealed concerns raised by prosecutors themselves, concerns that were ultimately overridden. The reasons remain unclear. After his release, Epstein returned to his properties and resumed many aspects of his former life. According to flight logs, travel continued. According to photographs, social connections persisted. According to financial records, assets remained largely intact. Public attention faded. For nearly a decade, Epstein operated in a gray zone. His status as a convicted offender limited some activities, yet his access to influence appeared undiminished. Reports suggest that powerful individuals continued to associate with him, sometimes publicly, sometimes discreetly. During this period, questions accumulated quietly. Why had federal charges been dropped? Who approved the agreement? Why were names sealed? Why were investigative threads left unexplored? The answers did not surface until years later. In 2018, investigative journalists began revisiting the case. Newly obtained documents, combined with previously overlooked testimony, reignited public interest. Victims came forward again, their accounts largely unchanged from earlier statements. This time, the response was different. In 2019, Epstein was arrested on federal charges of sex trafficking. According to the indictment, prosecutors outlined a pattern spanning years and multiple jurisdictions. The language was cautious, precise, and focused on provable conduct. Names of associates were largely absent, referred to indirectly or omitted entirely. Still, the implications were unmistakable. Within weeks, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. According to official reports, the death was ruled a suicide. However, multiple failures within the detention facility were later documented. Cameras malfunctioned. Guards failed to perform required checks. Records were incomplete. These failures intensified existing doubts. Public reaction was immediate and polarized. Some accepted the official findings. Others questioned how such lapses could occur simultaneously in a high-profile case involving extraordinary stakes. Congressional inquiries followed. Internal reviews were conducted. Yet definitive answers remained elusive. Epstein's death marked the end of potential testimony. With him gone, the possibility of a comprehensive public reckoning diminished significantly. In the months that followed, civil cases continued. Court documents released previously sealed materials, including flight logs, contact lists, and deposition excerpts. These documents revealed associations with numerous high-profile figures, though they did not establish criminal conduct by those individuals. The distinction mattered. Legal experts emphasized that presence in records did not equate to guilt. Still, the volume and prominence of the names raised difficult questions about accountability, influence, and proximity to power. Some individuals issued statements denying wrongdoing. Others declined to comment. In many cases, silence prevailed. According to records, several investigations were initiated or reopened. However, progress was slow. Jurisdictional complexity, evidentiary challenges, and the passage of time limited prosecutorial options. In some instances, statutes of limitations had expired. Meanwhile, Epstein's estate became the focus of financial settlements. Victims received compensation through a fund established with his assets. While this provided some measure of acknowledgement, it did not address broader questions of systemic failure. Those questions continued to linger. How did Epstein maintain access after his conviction? Why were warnings overlooked? Why did safeguards fail repeatedly? Why were consequences so narrowly applied? According to analysts, the answers may lie not in a single institution, but in the intersections between them. Financial secrecy, legal complexity, social deference, and political caution created an environment where scrutiny was diffused and responsibility diluted. Documents indicate that Epstein cultivated relationships strategically. Donations to academic institutions, associations with scientists, and philanthropic gestures enhanced his legitimacy. Invitations to exclusive events blurred professional boundaries. Influence operated quietly, informally, and effectively. In such spaces, accountability was often assumed rather than enforced. As time passed, attention shifted. New headlines emerged. Public focus moved on. Yet for those who continued to examine the record, the pattern remained visible. Power insulated itself, not through overt conspiracy, but through silence, delay, and fragmentation. Through legal agreements that prioritized closure over clarity, through institutional reluctance to confront uncomfortable implications. According to observers, the Epstein case did not reveal a hidden network, so much as it exposed familiar dynamics operating at an extreme scale. The final question is not who knew what, but why knowing was not enough. because the documents are still incomplete, the testimonies are still partial, the names are still contested, and the full story, according to many who have studied the case, has never been told in one place, at one time, with full transparency. What remains is a record defined as much by absence as by presence, a case where influence outpaced oversight, and where consequences arrived too late to answer the most pressing questions. The Epstein files did not simply document crimes. They documented a failure of systems designed to prevent them. And that failure, according to the record, did not occur in isolation. It occurred in plain sight.